Hello friends, how are you all doing? I trust everything is in perfect condition. Yeah, in this video, we'll be making a pencil skirt with a flounce at the center. Right now, to make a pencil skirt, you need the following measurements. You need your waist, you need your waistline to your hip line, you need your hip measurement and the full length. Okay, right now I'm going to mark my starting point. That's what I'm marking now, the starting point. You can mark half an inch or 1 inch for your starting point. The starting point just enables you to know where to start taking your measurement. It's just a guide. It's like a guide. All right, so I've marked my starting point. From that starting point, I'm going to mark my waistline to my hip line. It's always between 7 inches, 8 inches, or 9 inches, depending how tall the person you're making the cloth for is. So I'm marking my waistline to my hip line here. After that, I'm going to mark my full length. I'll place my tape on my starting point to take my full length measurement. That's what I'll mark now. And then remember to give out like 2 inches seam allowance. So I've marked my full length with my 2 inches seam allowance. And then the next thing to do is to connect the lines that I've marked. I'm connecting here now. I'm connecting my waistline to my hip line measurement, and I'll also connect my full length measurement. Yeah, so that's what I've done now. Okay, the next thing I'll do is to take my waist measurement. I'm working with a waist of 32. 32 divided by 4 is 8, plus 2 inches seam allowance is 10, and then I'll have to add 1 inch for my dart allowance. So I'll be marking like 11 inches. That's what I'm marking now. And then from there, I'll go to my hip measurement. My hip, I'm working with a hip of 40. 40 divided by 4 is 10, plus 2 inches seam allowance is 12. I don't need to add that allowance to this because my dart is not going to extend down to the hip. The dart stops around 6 inches. So I don't need to add that allowance to the hip area. So I'll be marking my hip measurement here. So that's my hip measurement. After that, I will go down. After marking the hip measurement, I'll go down to the full length. So on this line now, which is the full length, I'm going to subtract about 1.5 inches or 2 inches from my hip measurement. So assuming my hip measurement is 12 inches, I'm going to mark 10 down here, okay, or 10.5. So I'm doing this. You have to subtract from this full length just to get your pencil, just to get that pencil shape. So I'll be connecting the waist, the hip, and the full length now. I'll draw the line and connect it. Okay, I've connected the line. The next thing to do now is to take my dart measurement. I'm working with a dart of 8 inches divided by 2 is 4. So I'll mark my dart here. Um, that's my dart. And I'm working with a dart length. You can use between 5 to 6 inches, any one of it, but make sure you don't extend it to the hip line. So I will use 5 inches for my dart. That's what I've just marked. And then to create your dart, you're going to form half inch on both sides of the line. So I have to mark half inch on both sides of the line, which I've done, and then I'll connect it down to the dart length. I'm connecting it down to the dart length. So that's what I've done now, and my dart is ready. So the next thing to do is to cut off um, from what I've marked. I'm going to cut out what I've marked. So the next thing now, I'm going to mark to notch my dart. I've done that. So I've notched out my dart, and that's all for the front part. Okay, the next thing that I've placed my front fabric on top of another fabric because I want to get the back. And as you can see, I've marked out everything just the same way I did for the front part. I've marked the dart, connected it, and I'm cutting it out now. The front fabric is under this back fabric, okay? And also remember to remove your zip allowance. As you can see it on top, here's my zip allowance. You can see the back fabric is under while the front one is on top. You can see it. So I'm tracing out exactly what I have on the front fabric so I can get my back fabric. But also remember to remove your zip allowance. So the two fabrics are there. The darts, everything is on the same measurement. So I've marked them out. I've notched the dart, and I've also marked out my zip allowance. That's what I'm marking out now. I'm rolling it out. That's my zip allowance. So I'll roll it out. You can use 2 inches, you can use 1.5, you can use 1 inch. The next thing to do now, we are going to split the front part. This is the front part, and we want to split the front so we can get our flounce where we'll be fixing our flounce. So from the dart on the left side is what I'm splitting out now. I've rolled it out. I've rolled out the dart on the left side. So I'll be splitting it from there because I want my flounce to be there. So I'm going to cut it open. Right. So my flounce is going to be there just at that area where I split open. Okay, we'll move to the next part. Watch out for the part 2 of this video. Thank you.